So go ahead, Catherine.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of a audio feedback. Are you guys seeing this? Let me try that again. Okay, good. That's better. So hi, everybody. I'm Catherine. Thank you for inviting us to join your meeting tonight and to introduce you to the Safe Shelter Collaborative. We were going to do a quick overview of what the program is, its history, how it works, and then Ginger was going to talk a little bit about the specific launch in San Diego that happened in late August of this year. So just to get started, before we get into sort of the details of how it works, I want to talk a little bit about what the specific issue was. What was the problem that we were trying to address? And in a nutshell, and actually, I think we need to move a slide. There we go. It was basically that it was very difficult for victim assistance providers or case managers to find immediately available and survivor appropriate shelter. So we just worked with a number of agencies initially out of New Jersey to really dig deeper and better understand what that specific issue was. And what we heard repeatedly, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody on this call, was that it was just taking forever to find shelter, and that there often just wasn't any shelter to be found specific to a survivor's unique needs. And so to start to address that problem, we designed the Safe Shelter Collaborative, which is a free tech-enabled service that's browser-based that allows participating agencies to quickly locate survivor-appropriate shelter within their region. In addition to that, if these agencies or participating agencies have an existing hotel placement program, they can use the Safe Shelter Collaborative to connect with their individual donors and fundraise to cover the cost of a hotel stay. So it was designed explicitly to get at that issue of finding shelter faster, as opposed to being an all-encompassing program that can do every piece of the puzzle for survivor support. We really wanted to narrow in on what was the specific issue that we kept hearing about from the field that was an operational hurdle for participating agencies. And so you can see on the screen right now is a quick screenshot of what we call the admin dashboard. And this is how a participating agency would access the program. The dashboard is designed to be incredibly straightforward. This is actually one of the more detailed screens, but you'd go in here and Christy will get into this in a second, but you basically log in via a browser and you'd be able to look at your requests and beds that have been requested from your other agencies in your region. The little phone on the side there with the dove is a picture of the Safe Night mobile app. And that is what individual donors see if they're using the app to help support fundraising for a hotel stay. I think we have to go forward one more slide. So just to summarize, the program offers two features at this time. One is to help participating agencies locate immediately available and survivor appropriate shelter. And that happens, and because again, Christy will get into the details of this. The system allows a case manager to send out one alert that goes to all the participating agencies in one region all at the same time. So instead of making numerous phone calls and sending emails, everybody participating in a region gets alerted at the same time. And they are asked to respond with either, I might be able to help and let's talk through details, basically, or with a, no, I'm not able to help you at this time. So in essence, it creates a shortened call list for agencies trying to find an available shelter bed. I also wanted to highlight that one of the pieces that we wanted to address in the design of this program is that it also helps reduce traumatization for survivors. Something that we heard when we were helping to design the program, and thanks, Christy, is that it was not only difficult for case managers and intake managers to find a shelter bed, they were also in a situation where survivors were having to tell their story over and over again. And having a means to connect a need or alert other agencies in the region to a need all at the same time has done a lot to help reduce the possibility of re-traumatization. And that's essentially what the locate shelter feature, that's basically how that operates. And then the next slide goes into a little bit of the fundraising piece. And again, you'll see a little screenshot of what the companion mobile app looks like. And that's what an individual donor would see. The agency is still accessing the program through that admin dashboard we showed earlier. And through that admin dashboard, we send an alert that shows up on an individual's phone, just like you see in the screenshot. And the idea here is that if you are an agency that is already using hotels, you'd be able to quickly request a very specific donation amount to support the placement of a specific survivor in a hotel. And what we've heard from the field is that it provides a really interesting new way to engage donors and to not only expand their donor base, but also to provide an additional funding stream to support a hotel placement program. And again, I'm going to pause there for a sec because I'm going to hand it over to Christy, who is going to talk through a bit more of the nuts and bolts about how this all actually works. So that was a bit of a high-level interview. Thank you.
Thank you,
Christy,
Catherine. I appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be honest. After I may be losing my job as slide advancer after this, so sorry, Catherine. I kind of I tripped up a little bit, but we're good. So we want to talk a little bit more about how it works, and we certainly want to be able to entertain questions for y'all too. So if you have anything that you want to ask about during the presentation, please put it in the chat box, and we're going to try to go along and answer them as we can. And we also want to have time at the end of the presentation to engage with you. So, you know, a survivor will reach out to an agency for shelter. What happens when that agency doesn't have space or the needs to find the right fit? So that's really where the Safe Shelter Collaborative comes in. And to kind of break down what Catherine talked about in her overview, we have this nice infographic that kind of walks through the workflow. So if you look at the graphic, of course, the first two are, you know, survivor comes into a shelter and agency. They don't have shelter space, but they are participating in the Safe Shelter Collaborative. So what can they do? Well, if you look at the top row, it walks you through if they're participating with the Safe Shelter Collaborative with emergency shelter placement, the agency actually log into the Safe Shelter Collaborative platform. They would send out a request, and it would go to all of the participating agencies within that region or collaborative. And shelters in need then respond quickly. We've seen it drastically reduce the response time from where a survivor, or an advocate has to call multiple agencies and spend hours trying to locate shelter space to be able to do it in a matter of minutes. And we'll look at that in just a minute. And then if the agencies are responding back, they can respond back with a maybe response. And if they do, then that would trigger the requesting case manager to call the other agency who's indicating they have shelter space for them to do more of a one-on-one call and really assess if the shelter space is a good fit for the survivor. Option two, along the bottom row, if there is not shelter space available, then the agency can, if they're participating in the hotel placement program, send out a request to all of their participating donors to ask them to cover the cost of the stay. So as Catherine was saying, you know, it's a quick way or a nice way to be able to engage with donors, to ask them to provide support that has not only immediate impact, but also because of everything that's been going on with the pandemic and kind of just the financial stress we've all been under, people are able to make a contribution in a real way that's not going to put stress on their financial pocketbook too. So it's a good way to, again, feel like we're making a difference when everything has been so uncertain right now. And then just overall, it's a good way then that donors are feeling like they're making a real impact instead of just making like a one-time contribution and not really knowing what it's going for. They know exactly what their dollars are going for, and that's providing a safe space for survivors. So we do have some additional slides that we can share with y'all that really kind of gets into the nuts and bolts of step-by-step of how this happens. But once a donation is made, I did want to point out that the supporter does receive a notification that they have made a tax-deductible donation. So we want to make sure that they are also getting that confirmation of that they have made that donation. I was about to say next slide, and then I realized, oh yeah, that's me. So own impact, as we discussed, it has dramatically reduced the number of hours and days that advocates spend searching for a space to having a typical response time can come in under 5 minutes. Now we know across the collaboratives that we work with, sometimes that time frame varies, but it's still like from 5 to 10 to 15 to maybe even 20 minutes, but that's still reducing the amount of time that is spent trying to find space and being able to reallocate that to actually doing solid case management for survivors. So that in and of itself is a way to reduce trauma, that survivors are not just kind of in limbo waiting to find out what happens next. And we also want to provide a quick snapshot of kind of the impact of what the Safe Shelter Collaborative has been since we launched. And so as you can see from this nice infographic, I did not design it, so that's why I'm bragging on it, that over 2,000 supporters are waiting to fund emergency shelter. So that's basically 2,000 supporters or a donor base that's waiting. They've signed up, they want to participate, they're waiting for, and that's across all the collaboratives, right? But that they've already engaged and said, yes, we want to be able to participate and help fund hotel stays where appropriate. Since we have launched, over $53,000 has been donated through 817 donations. So it's pretty significant. 2,462 requests for shelter have resulted in over 1,200 actual placements. And we're really pleased that since we launched in the San Diego area, we now have 171 agencies participating across 17 states. So we're really pleased about that. We're also looking at the San Diego, we really held that up as a model best practice. And so we're so happy Ginger's here to kind of share how that's been for her and how it's been for the programs participating. But I also would say we're excited to look towards launching, upcoming launches include Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, Florida, and we've also begun conversations with folks in Boston, Massachusetts. So we've got a lot happening and just feel like there's a lot on the horizon, but again, partnership in San Diego has been tremendous, and they've really set the bar high for all of these new collaboratives to come online and try to match the great work that they've already done. So Ginger, again, not because you're on the call, but because of you, we're so pleased with what San Diego's been able to accomplish. Also, just wanted to provide some feedback of what folks are saying. So one advocate said it's really streamlined the work. Again, instead of taking hours and days, it's taking on average 1 to 2 calls, which is huge, right? And being able to reallocate time well spent with survivors and doing solid case management. Someone else said, I believe this is an amazing tool that assists us in being more efficient when searching for emergency shelters in an already very difficult time for our clients. And this feedback was provided pre-COVID. So just imagine now in time of COVID with everybody being stretched to the gills, the impact that it could make for both advocates and survivors. And then another person said, if our shelter is full, we can still offer services by offering a hotel stay or finding space at another shelter. And again, going back to what Catherine says, it's providing a new way for programs to really engage and attract donors through this app and the platform. So just quickly, who can join? So it is free, just to reiterate what Catherine said, to participate in 501c3 organizations, also to tribal entities, and to law enforcement agencies that offer victim assistance services. So we're really pleased to see that the FBI Victim specialist folks are on the call because again, we are just to give you a little FYI, we have been talking to a program manager out of DC with the FBI office to be able to do a national training for all the victim specialists of the FBI. So we hope to have more information to share with you later about that. But I think it's like 120 folks. So that's huge in of itself. And we're really excited. All organizations that express interest and apply to be a member are thoroughly vetted. So we really want to do that to ensure that each agency has completed training and best practices to support survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault. We really want to make sure that they embrace being trauma-informed and survivor-centered, and also that they're doing what they say that they do. So it's a pretty thorough process, but it's also kind of relatively painless because Leah Polikoff, who is our account manager, does such a super job with working with the agencies, and she has such a good rapport. So it just makes it feel I don't want to say a walk in the park, but Leah really goes a long way with building those relationships and helping agencies understand each step of the way what's happening. Again, as I expressed, all organizations must provide trauma-informed care and sheltering services to survivors of human trafficking, DV, and sexual assault. And there's no obligation to join. So if someone expressed an interest and they want to go ahead and submit an application, and then they decide for whatever reason they don't want to, like it's not a good fit for them at that time, then they don't have to join. We certainly want to keep that opportunity and that door open. So if the timing becomes better aligned for them in the future, they can. But we've seen that a few times with what's going on with COVID. We've had some agencies that were really there at the point of like almost finishing everything with the application process, and then coming back to us and saying, you know what, we are still extremely interested, but right now we just need to put it on pause. So we certainly understand that. We want this to be a tool and a resource that is helpful, but that's not adding extra burden. So we really like to be flexible, but also, like I said, continue having engagement with communities just to let them know that we're here to support them. So that was it, down and dirty. That was really fast. I think it's the time of night. I think it's freaking me out a little bit because most of the time I'm here during the day when it's very well lit. And now everything feels like it's got a very blue cast in here this evening. So I don't know if y'all are seeing that, but I don't know if that impacted my speed in delivering this presentation. So I apologize for being bullet fast. But Catherine, did we have any great or profound questions in the chat box before I hand it off to our good friend, Ginger?
You know, we've had just one outstanding question, and that how many agencies do we currently have participating in the region? And actually, I was gonna see if Ginger had a number. That's actually the perfect segue to Ginger's portion.
Yes, I do. So if y'all, did y'all stop sharing your screen? You notice I picked up on Christy's Southern accent. I've lived in Florida, Alabama, Texas. So, okay, I'm gonna do my screen share here. Does everybody see it yet? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Then maybe I didn't hit the screen share button. Share my screen. There I am right there. Okay, I was trying to figure out how to do this with being on the slideshow as soon as I opened it up. Why is it doing that? Okay, all right. So I kind of wanted to give you some highlights of how we came about in San Diego with what we're calling the Southern California Safe Shelter Collaborative, because that's our goal. We understand that the issues that we're facing are issues that are not just in one county or one city. And you all know that because you're familiar with this work. And so we went into this with the goal that we would make this a regional collaborative because we feel we can better serve survivors by being able to place them out of area if they need that, or in any place where they need to be location wise. And so, but we did agree that we would start with our San Diego community because we knew each other. And one of the really important things that we felt the Safe Shelter Collaborative gave us an offer to do was to build really strong, trusted partnerships so that we knew the people that we were referring survivors, victims or survivors to. You know, at the heart of, for myself, serving on the Human Trafficking Advisory Council for 8 years, I rolled off last year, was hearing from service providers and victims and survivors themselves, just the challenges of placement and how that is like a first step to have secure, safe housing before they can move on to the next step. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here for most of you who might know that. So what I heard so many times over my interactions through the other work that I was doing and through California Against Slavery came to a point where in October of 2018, we were tabling at the Just Conference in Town and Country Hotel in San Diego, and Catherine and Leah from Safe Shelter were there tabling right next to us. So we had a lot of opportunity to hear exactly what this offered. At the same time, California Against Slavery was putting together a directory of services, statewide directory of services for human trafficking survivors. So it just kind of clicked with us. It was like the answer to everything that we have been looking for. So what we just, whoops, sorry, clicked too much. Okay, so what we started doing was talking through the advisory council first on who was going to be a part of this and how we would get this started. And one of the things that was kind of new to us in the human trafficking community, which is where my experience is, was that Safe Shelter offers this to domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. If you didn't pick up on that, I wanted to focus on that. So we had the opportunity, and Safe Shelter Collaborative was very open to what our ideas and what we needed to do to make the collaborative that we would be proud of and that would fit our community the best, was make it regional. That was one thing. The other one was we decided we wanted to go cross-sector. And that has been such an awesome partnership, a growing experience to learn from domestic violence, which, you know, domestic violence has been on the radar of the world. I know 30 so years ago or more, I'm aging myself, it was something that we were becoming really aware of domestic violence and doing some advocacy in that many decades ago. But human trafficking really has only been maybe the last 15, 20 years, depending on how early you jumped in. So we've learned a lot from our domestic violence partners. So what we have right now is we worked from that October to whatever, we had about a year of casual meetings, and then we started this last spring in February, March, April, and then really kicked it up in July and August in meeting with people, getting them on board, having meetings with Jennifer Morrison and sometimes Leah and sometimes Catherine and sometimes all three about how to formulate this. And we've been really privileged to get over 26 organizations on board already. We have a few that still have outstanding agreements, legal agreements that are still hashing their way through legal, but we've just, I'm going to just share a few of them with you just so that you can kind of see where we are. We have Alabaster Jar Project, we have Bilateral Safety Corridor Coalition, California Against Slavery, Chadwick Center for Children and Families out of the Rady Children's Hospital, Generate Hope, La Maestra Community Health Centers, North County Lifeline, the On-Ramps program at Point Loma Center for Justice and Reconciliation, San Diego Youth Services, South Bay Community Services, the WellPath Valley Oasis, which is up in Palmdale, Center for Community Solutions, Community Resource Center, Home Start, Jewish Family Services, Palomar Health Services, Salvation Army Door of Hope, San Diego DA's office, and that includes victims services for domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. San Diego Family Justice Center is almost, I mean, they're totally on board, but their agreement is still being modified a bit. And Southern Indian Health Centers and the Women's Resource Center. So all total, we figure we have 10 organizations that offer shelter beds in Southern California. That's where we are right now. That will bump up when a few of our partners get their additional agreements on board. With a total of about 380 shelter beds, we've modified that down a little bit on the human trafficking. Some of them are agencies that serve human trafficking, domestic violence, or sexual assault. So some of those are different. But that's a pretty substantial supply of shelter beds in need. We have 16 organizations that, like California Against Slavery, we don't give direct services to survivors, but we connect survivors with service providers. So that's called a referral only organization. And that might also include like the Chadwick Center. They don't actually have shelter beds, but they refer people to who need shelter. And then we have 10 who have signed on so far with the Safe Night app. And that's that separate app that I just am in love with, frankly, because having done a lot of work within our hotel community in San Diego County, I know how that can be such an important component to providing survivors with temporary stay. And what other two things that I loved about it that I think they may have mentioned, but it's worth re-mentioning, is with the Safe Night app, individuals download the app and they choose the organization that they want to support. And then the call for a hotel night only goes out when there is a need, and the ask is only for the amount of that hotel night. And once that $100 or whatever that one night or 2 nights is, depending on the request, once that is in, it closes it. So donors are not giving to a slush fund, or they're not just giving to a hotel things. The other thing I love about it is Safe Night tracks it as designated funds. And so they know where the money goes out and they know where the money comes in. And that's just quite wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. We've had 2 opportunities in San Diego County where we've kind of explored the ideas of apps and how we can use that to streamline the work of our service providers. But Safe Shelter already had it in place, and we are so thrilled to be able to participate with that. So anybody, including you, could click on that Safe Night app, pick one of our partner organizations that you want to support, who are also Safe Night organizations, and you can get started right away. Or you can, like other organizations that are coming on board, because we have new people finding us every single day. The Seroptimists against Together Against Trafficking, the STAT organization, is very interested in bringing their Seroptimist groups, all of them in San Diego County, on board for Safe Night. So we're working on that, and we're very, very excited about that. Okay, I know I'm talking fast, so I'm going to just give you a little overview. I think I kind of called out most of the names, but you can kind of see just who are some of our partners on board or in process at this time. We have a broad range, and that's what I just am so excited about, and so grateful that Safe Shelter, and through this process, we've really strengthened our community. Not only are we supporting and strengthening our service providers as they support and serve victims, but we're supporting our community by networking together and really getting to know each other and have that trust base. And so along with that trust base, our mission, we decided as SoCal, Safe Shelter Collaborative, that our mission was much the same, but we wanted to rapidly connect survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, and sexual assault to safe shelter through client-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally sensitive means. We so appreciated Safe Shelter and their patience and just them allowing us to be able to make this a San Diego version of Safe Shelter Collaborative. Our goals were to obviously reduce the time that it takes to identify survivor appropriate shelter, minimize those barriers, take those down, and reduce the potential for any re-traumatization that a survivor might have during that process. You know, those of you who work with survivors directly, you understand that you have that window sometimes. You know, when you get that window, if you can't respond to the needs that they have within that window, you might lose them. So to be able to reduce the time and minimize those barriers, it gives you that opportunity to help people more, and that's what we want. We wanted to collaborate, have a collaborative emphasis on a warm handoff of survivors. This is our service providers in San Diego County. They just are so client-centered, victim-centered, survivor-centered, trauma-informed, and they wanted to make sure that it wasn't just, here's a phone number, call these people and find yourself a place, but that once someone on our team is connected with a victim or a survivor, that they would carry it through till that person finds safe shelter. And we wanted to expand referral sources for survivors needing shelter and other outreach mechanisms. So those were some of the goals. We have more. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Chrissy, Grace. Thank you, Jennifer, who's been on all our calls. But then we wanted to bring together staff that are serving these communities to really build relationships between the organizations and to expand our network of service providers so that we can reach more survivors and serve more survivors more efficiently. So that kind of is within our own. We've learned about what is available for domestic violence, what is available for sexual assault. Where are those overlaps? We've in human trafficking been learning over the last several years that there are overlaps that you all, I'm sure, have seen in the work that you've been doing. So we wanted to make sure that we recognize that, brought people together, and that we built those relationships to more efficiently serve. And then we also thought that this was a really great opportunity for us to gather and review data provided by the Safe Shelter Collaborative to ensure quality improvement. And that has to do with how quickly are we responding. When a call goes out, the average first response is within minutes. That means you may get a no, your first response, or you may get a maybe, your first response. But I have been on the asking end of that, where I, doing hotel outreach, met a survivor who was sitting in the lobby of a hotel as I was inviting someone to come to our hotel symposium several years ago. And she asked me as I got up to leave, she said, "I'm sorry, I overheard what you were saying. Do you have help for someone who wants to get out of the life?" And this was in 2016. I was oh yes, absolutely. I know people. So standing and staying and having dinner with her and trying to figure out a way and a placement and making contact with her, for me, meant being on the telephone, calling all these people at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, which was not the best particular time. And then eventually I put her in a hotel that she had not been in before, a brand new hotel. That was good for the night because I had not been able to place it. So I understand that dynamic, and I understand how important it is to be able to get an answer to someone within that little window that we're talking about, that window of opportunity to serve. So we can gather this information through our requests and our response times. And I have a copy here that you won't be able to see, but this is kind of like our activity report, our little Bing report, which I won't pull up and give you details. But since we have launched, we've had almost 10 requests. We launched August 26th with our organizations, and we've had almost 10 requests. There are 3 of them that just came in within the last few days. And so I don't know the resolution of those, but we've been able to place some people quickly through our trusted network. And then we wanted to ensure that all those organizations that are representative, that their staff receive thorough quality education that's focused on being client-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally sensitive. And to that end, with the great help from North County Lifeline, in particular Kathleen Thomas and Tara Mariquin of the DA's Victims Assistance Program in domestic violence, we put together what were some basic requirements. And so we have the 40 hours that domestic violence kind of already has in place. We have 40 hours that human trafficking was more fluid. I'll say that it kind of depended on the organization. The law requires 40 hours and kind of gives you general things. Well, Kathleen Thomas was awesome about putting together really detailed information and online free courses that could fill it. What's been really exciting about that is many of our service providers who are already trained and already have their staff trained up to these standards are using them as refresher courses and additional training. Then we also ask any of our referral organizations to do this minimum requirement in all three: domestic violence. So it ends up being like about 2 hours and 15 minutes all total, but it gives us a broader understanding of the different sectors and also prepares our mind for the kind of way that trauma-informed and victim-centered approach that we want to have. So that is kind of the standard that we set for partnership in the Southern California Safe Shelter Collaborative. This is our steering committee, some of the great people that have been a part of this. And I will just say again, since Christy and I and Catherine are all on the call, I'll give big, huge kudos to Safe Shelter for what they have allowed us to create here that made our partners feel fully confident in the partnerships that we are referring people to. That streamlines things so dramatically. So now I think I'm done. There's my information. You can contact me, and I will include my slide deck so Amy can send that out to you if you have any questions or concerns. And please do not hesitate to call. Feel free to apply. And we look forward to connecting with you more.
Thank you so much. We do have a question in the chat box. It says, do some of the local hotels partner with SoCal Safe Shelter to provide discounts on rooms?
Yes, not to us.
Not to us.
I'm getting echoed again. That's okay. I'll talk. I'll hear myself twice. We are working on developing that a little more dynamically. We received through the DA's Victim Services has received some special funding for hotel stays for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. And so they have asked our Safe Shelter Collaborative to kind of be an overview organization for who receives those funds and how they go out. And we're also working on, many of our service providers already have discounted hotel rate relationships with our hotels in the area. And we're working on developing more of that so that they know, so that we have that catalog, that ready reference of the hotels in multiple areas in the county that can serve them. So we're working on it. We don't have it quite as robust as I'd like to see it right now, but we will be.
Ginger, this is Michelle.
Yay, Michelle.
Hi. So with this coming up, I have so unfortunately, but fortunately, during the height of the pandemic, the hospital foundation had developed some relationship with local hospitals to give like a healthcare provider rate for healthcare staff that weren't able to go home. Yeah. And so I've reached out just local, because we're coming on board, with our use.
We're waiting.
Yes, I have the fully signed agreement. We're just waiting for the IT security assessment. So that's the only thing in the background.
Okay.
But I have the fully executed agreement. Yay! But the thing that I'm running into, so I did call these hotels, and it's been great having the conversation, and they're most of them are willing to help and give rates. But what I'm running into the issue is that they want to have a credit card on file. And for anyone going through human trafficking or DV, it's a barrier. You know, we do not want them running the card for safety reasons in the background, because that could be traceable if they're on a joint account. And if there's damage to the room, who's liable? So those are some of the troubleshooting things I've encountered. I do have one hotel that's willing to take gift cards as a payment tender and not requiring. So it's, some of them are really good about giving the rates. It's the incidentals and liability card on file that I'm running into.
Okay, that's a really, really excellent point, and I'll give you my take on it, and then I'd love Catherine or Christy to chime in on their experience nationwide, because they've had Safe Night Up nationwide. But my understanding is, like, for example, if California Against Slavery puts out the hotel request, that there are a couple of ways to do it. We can pay the hotel with our card, our organizational card, now incidentals, that's a good question. I hadn't really thought about incidentals, you know, and then we can get reimbursed from the Safe Night app. But Catherine, can you or Christy chime in and kind of give Michelle a little coaching on that?
Sure, I can jump in, and Christy, feel free to jump in too if I'm, you know, if I've overlooked anything. What we hear mostly from the field is that shelter referral agencies have a really close relationship with one or two hotels where they know the hotel management staff, for example, and they have set up a process. And you all, I'm sorry, you all know this already, but where when they make a reservation for a survivor, it's usually under a different name, but that name is related to, it's a little bit of a heads up to staff at the hotel that this person may need additional attention in whatever way. And that generally is a credit card associated also with that name that comes from the agency. So it covers both the hotel stay and incidentals, is how I've generally heard it managed through agencies. And as Ginger points out, those costs can then be reimbursed through the Safe Night Fund fundraising option. So, anything to add there, Eva, or clarify?
Well, clarify, if you would, Catherine or Christy, that the money that comes into the Safe Night app goes to Safe Night, and then the organization would pay for the hotel room, and the organization would be reimbursed from the money collected from their donor base for Safe Night. Is that it? Someone want to explain that again?
That was very nicely said.
Okay.
It operates on a reimbursement basis. So, and partly because we don't ever want to put any kind of barrier into causing a delay in having someone placed in a hotel. So once somebody is placed in a hotel, that's when the alert goes out to individual donors to get funding to support the cost of that hotel stay. And usually, at once a month, we send reimbursement checks or payments to participating agencies. So the longest an agency would need to wait for reimbursement is a month. So
I see a comment from Tessa that Tessa has a bit of experience. Tessa, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, and you gave a case example that was really closely related, but we sometimes organize hotel stays for our patients at Planned Parenthood when they have procedures that require them to stay overnight. And so we've partnered with a hotel that will turn off incidentals, so there can't be any additional charges to the room. They're willing to put my name on the hotel stay and then just put the survivor's name in the comments section so that it's not traceable back to them, but that the survivor can check in. And then they also allow us, so if there's a situation where the patient doesn't have a driver's license, someone else is able to pick up that key for them. And so we've worked that out and fleshed everything out. And Michelle, you and I can talk offline too if you need some recommendations of local hotels, because they've been really, really flexible in working with us. It's just one hotel, but they have multiple locations and things all over San Diego. And so they've been really flexible.
Perfect.
Really
Yeah,
Well,
thank you, Tessa. I'd love that, because the issue is not sometimes for people wanting to help. It's sometimes it gets escalated in these policies. So no, I would love to talk more about that.
So I do know that Evans Hotels and Bartels those hotel groups in San Diego have been very receptive. There are other like Marriott hotels that have they have like a corporate policy to support in human trafficking, which I'm sure it might be with domestic violence also. But I do know that those two hotel groups are really supportive. And then also, if you have more questions, Michelle, North County Lifeline does this a lot. And they have some great relationships in North County primarily. But if you wanted to have me connect you with Tamara or Melissa Hopt over there, and they can kind of coach you on how they have established those relationships. The established relationship, or some hotels even allow organizations to have an account there for this particular purpose. We just haven't done an account. We've just used our California Against Slavery credit card. We haven't used it in Safe Night yet, but we've done it for other stays. So anyway, it's doable. Thank you for bringing up those questions, because that's one of the topics that I have with the steering committee at our next meeting in 2 weeks, is this whole hotel relationship and how we're going to continue with that. So thank you for thinking that through. I might be sending you more questions.
All right, thank you guys so much. And yeah, we'll connect offline, Tessa, and then Ginger, as I'm putting this process together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, one quick note, I will say we do have some really good resources on engaging with hotels, and also some tips and guidance from other programs who are using the Safe Night Out and how they are building relationships. So with the hotel, so I did want to just draw your attention to, I put the link into the chat box.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention that, Palomar Health is coming on, but also our San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force, which is a part of their REACH network that they started. They're coming on board too. So we're really excited about that. And They do have FBI representatives at the task force. So we're excited. Our law enforcement partners are just invaluable in this fight. So we're very grateful that they're going to be partnering with us in this. So thank you. I'm sorry I rushed, but we had a lot to cover. And really, this is a very rich, very great opportunity for our community. So thank you.
I have one additional question, if that's okay. So when it comes to using the hotel stay feature, is there a target timeline? Like, is it usually 1 day of staying in the hotel and then the hope is to get them into shelter? Like, what's the ideal in that situation?
Catherine, you want to chime?
I wasn't sure. Yeah, it varies. And at the Safe Shelter Collaborative as a program isn't directly involved with those types of decisions, or is tracking too much data for that right now. Mostly because we just don't want to have any potential for any personally identifiable information in our systems. But I can tell you that from what I know anecdotally, it's usually a few days. It's often, a temporary choice until there's an opening at a shelter. We also have a couple of shelters I know that if they have a long-term stay at their shelter, will sometimes temporarily move someone to a hotel to free up an emergency bed when that's needed at the shelter. So it's hard to say exactly, but I would say it's just a few days.
A few days, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also the thing is, it's not, you don't go in and designate like 1 night, 2 nights. It is a monetary amount that's being asked for. So if you even want to, programs have the option of being able to break it down into smaller increments. If you wanted to see if you had multiple donors giving like $50 a piece, instead of like asking somebody to make the full, if it's multiple nights, $500-$600, or whatever it is, the cost. So you have an option of how you are making the request, because it is reflective of a monetary amount instead of like check 1 night, 2 nights, if that makes sense.
And one thing that we that I just wanted to clarify with our particular collaborative is a hotel stay means that someone is still, we're about that warm handoff thing and that caring, trauma-informed, victim-centered approach. And so for our group, that they would still get supportive services, even if they're in a hotel for a few nights. They still would have a case manager there helping them make the transition and figure things out. So that I think is a valuable component to consider. I'm not sure, how it's being done now, but that's one expectation that we ask all our organizations to strive towards, that you don't just put somebody in a hotel, let them sit there by themselves, for days while you try and find them a place, but that you are still working to help them deal with everything else they need to deal with. So I'm pretty sure you covered that already, Michelle. So thank you. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Are there any other questions before we let them go?
Hi, I had one other question for y'all, specifically around the Safe Night app. I realize that there's a focus in San Diego of kind of a regional group that's collaborating with, among different service providers. But I'm curious, because sometimes victims of human trafficking can be transported to somewhere else in the country or across or internationally. Say a young or a survivor connects with a service provider that uses Safe Night, and let's say you're opening up in Tennessee soon. So let's say that you found them in Nashville, but they have family in San Diego. Would the Safe Night, the app, provide an opportunity to connect with services located in San Diego and possibly create funding to help that person get back to either resources in San Diego or family that are safe that they could connect with in San Diego?
So Catherine, do you want to take that? Because I'm trying to think how I'm going to answer, and I'm going to let you go, and then if you don't mind, I'll support you.
The short answer is yes-ish. The use case I would imagine here is that you have a survivor, you're in Tennessee somewhere, and they have family in San Diego. The agency in Tennessee would be able to send a shelter alert to other agencies in different parts of the country. And in this case, we would probably, I would imagine the Southern California shelter group would be open to receiving those alerts.
We are.
And that would begin the process of connecting that survivor with survivor appropriate resources. And that may include a hotel stay. It may actually include a shelter stay instead. It depends on the needs of that specific survivor. So yes, that is possible. Absolutely, it's something we are in the process now of updating our technology to streamline how that functions. Right now, you've heard of a wonderful person named Leah Polikoff mentioned a few times probably already. She's our account manager. She's fantastic at supporting agencies and helping to think through how to make sure the program works for them. So right now, someone would contact Leah directly and she would facilitate that ask.
And my kind of dream for Safe Night would be that the call could go out and you could support anybody anywhere who needs a hotel room, because I think that that for donors opens up. Right now, when you download the Safe Night app, you choose the organization that you want to support, and you can change that. Like you could support Generate Hope now, and then you could support North County Lifeline another time, or Interfaith Shelters another time, but you can only support one at a time. And my vision would be that I could support all of them. Whenever they have a request, I would receive the request. So that's just another idea from San Diego. If you haven't already thought it, girl, you're good to go. But anyway, thank you, James. That's a very important part of it.
Yeah, thank you to all of you for not only answering my questions, but also your presentation. I really enjoyed hearing it, and also it's exciting to hear about like programs and apps and software in this new age of technology that are that are facilitating these ways of connecting our world, and or even donors maybe in one geographic location to another, and also minimizing the re-traumatization of survivors. So kudos to you guys. And Christy, you made me chuckle a few times with your mentions of the presentation. You did a great job. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. You're so kind.
Thank you so much. Please look in the chat box. I do have thank you notes for our speakers tonight. So if you haven't yet opened those and signed them, please do. We really appreciate all of the time that has gone into developing this and making it meaningful for our local efforts. I know it's going to make a difference in how we can make sure that people don't slip through the cracks and get the services that they need in a timely way. And thank you again for everything that you've done to make that possible.
Thanks, Shell. We appreciate it. It was great being with you tonight. This afternoon. I'm sorry. I'm going to back it up a little bit since I'm a little further ahead in time.
It is nighttime. You go the other way, Christy.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
night.
Shell.
Take care.